and welcome back to the Wild Within. Today, I'm just going to dive straight in. I would love to share with you all a little bit about my embodied reflection, integration, and visioning and intention setting process for the new year. Really, essentially, what it is that I personally like to use during this portal, transitional, kind of liminal space between, Christmas and the new year, and also really why it is important that we do this kind of embodied visioning work rather than just setting New Year's resolutions. Why New Year's resolutions don't work. Really just going to dive into what's happening around this transitional time of the year and how we can use reflectional tools to create the greatest shift and change in our lives for the better in the year to come. So let's dive in. Oof, I'm just going to take a breath. Maybe take a breath with me as, we're here in that liminal space around the holidays, just before the new year. I don't know about all of you. This time of year always feels so potent, so kind of transformational. It can feel a little bit heavy. There's really this, for me, I feel this energy of going inwards. And I see this as well with my clients. We've been talking a lot about wrapping things up. What is it that we're releasing? What is it that we're kind of setting down that we're not wanting to take into the year ahead? And of course, this is very much a, universal theme around the transition of the years, but particularly this year, I feel in 2025, as we're wrapping up this year of the snake in Chinese astrology, and this year number 9 in numerology, right? Which is all around endings. And I find that I feel rather that it's not a coincidence that the 9 year and the snake have coincided, because both are really about completions around shedding skins. And whether you subscribe to kind of some of these systems and schools of thinking and more spiritual models for looking at collective energy or not, you may have found yourself moving through periods of release, of transition, of shedding old identities or roles or belief systems this year, and really kind of being in the stickiness and the discomfort of the in-between space. As any time we are letting something go, there's always a kind of a regrowth time before the new is born, right? So, okay, we're here right in this transitional space. I just want to share my thoughts on, why do I like to use a more embodied form of visioning and reflection? And I'll share a little bit what that is in a moment. Rather than just kind of like setting New Year's resolutions, choosing a word for the year, choosing an intention, putting that on a vision board. All of these tools are great, and they all work to the degree that we work with them actively, right? But I think we all kind of know that New Year's resolutions don't work. And why is that? Why is it that we can come into a fresh year with so much enthusiasm and so much motivation to change, right? You might have big dreams on your heart. Oftentimes, New Year's resolutions are around habits or behaviors that we want to change and things we want to let go. And again, oftentimes, or it might be something that we want to start, right? Going to the gym, starting a meditation practice, launching a new business, getting out more, maybe starting to put yourself out there to find a relationship, whatever it might be. But we all know that a lot of times those New Year's resolutions come the second or third week of January, are out the door, and we're back to where we began, right? Our life is looking really similar to how it was, and we're feeling frustrated, and okay, well, next year's going to be my year, right? No, I want to support you in actually setting up a sustainable way to create change in your life that is lasting, that is positive and in the direction that you want to go, and kind of has this built-in check-in system into it as well, right? So it's not this all or nothing experience. So why I think New Year's resolutions don't stick, and why this idea of like positive change that we're going to create right away in the new year. Well, first of all, many people don't understand actually what sustainable change, lasting change actually looks like, or how to bring it about, right? It's easy to idealize these big, great sweeping changes that are going to happen right away all at once, right? January 1st, everything's going to change. I'm going to become the person who goes to the gym every day, who works out like this, who eats like this, who quits smoking, who quits drinking, who's starting to date their ideal partner, right? Like we imagine, we idealize that it's all going to happen right at once. And that's not how change works. That's not how anything happens sustainably. It's actually not even safe in our bodies. We're not wired for great sweeping change to happen right away. Our nervous systems are not wired for it. They actually recognize that kind of massive change all at once as something threatening to our survival. So our nervous systems are wired to keep us in what's familiar and what's known and what's certain. So we need to work with that as we're creating change in our lives. The other reason New Year's resolutions don't work can be many reasons, right? We're operating out of new behavior versus new identity. We're also often running out of our old belief system. So we might have new things that we want to do, new dreams, new visions, new ways that we want to be living. But if we're still running from the same belief systems that we did last year, nothing's going to change. If we're still operating from the same subconscious program, nothing's going to change, right? Until we shift the operating system, nothing's actually going to change in our life. Two more reasons that I find New Year's resolutions generally don't stick when they're not embodied, is that we're often not changing the pieces that really support lasting change, which can be environment and community, right? So if you want to develop new habits, if you want to develop a new practice in your life, surround yourself with the types of people who are going to support that, right? Or put yourself in the environments that are going to support that. These are two ways that we can really boost ourselves in change. It doesn't mean you have to move out of the country and move to Bali to start living in the way that you want to live, right? Maybe that means you join a sangha or a spiritual community. Maybe it means you start cutting out a couple of people from your life that you know are only exacerbating the habits that you want to remove. Maybe not cutting out, but at least spending less time and starting to spend time with people who support the person that you are becoming, right? The final reason that we might not be living our New Year's resolutions is we haven't actually integrated and metabolized the last phase of our lives, the last cycle, right? If we're just charging straight ahead into new intentions, new visions without looking back and recognizing what's shifted and changed and who we've become in the last year, we're not going to create the space for something new to be born, for ourselves to grow in new ways in the coming year, right? So, all right, that's kind of why New Year's resolutions I find don't work in the traditional sense. Now, what does support lasting change and intention setting and embodied visions that actually come to be embodied manifestation, so to speak, even though I don't really love that word, in the new year? So I love to go through personally a process of reflection and integration in the transitional time between the new year and the old year. And I recommend all of my clients to do this as well. And as I mentioned, our lives are go, go, go. Whether we know it or not, we are doing, we are constantly in action. We are so focused on the outside world. And that's amazing, in terms of all the things that we might create, the people we're taking care of. If you have family, you might be focused on that. We're focused on work and productivity. And we need space to go inwards, right? Wintertime supports this. The year of the snake is all about shedding. It's all about recognizing what parts of ourselves are we releasing? How are we changing? We necessarily have to metabolize and digest and integrate and recognize the ways that we've changed in the year past if we want to move things forward in a flowing, clear way. It's kind of like clearing the river so the water can flow. And why is this? Well, let me just share first of all, one of my favorite practices for reflection is actually going through month by month. And if you want, you can take the PDF that I'm going to put in the show notes for this episode, and it'll have a couple pages in there with all of the months of the year that you can do this practice. But actually going through month by month and reflecting on what happened in each month. What were the highlights? What were the wins, the celebrations? What great things happened that month? What were the challenges? What were the sticking points? What were the significant moments? And what were the lessons and learnings from each month this year? And what themes arose? What was the overall theme? Like, if you had to pick a main theme for each month, what was that? This can take up several pages in your journal. I know it does for me. I actually just did mine last night, and I'm going to go through again and kind of a little bit more detail, probably today and tomorrow. And it takes some time, right? But you deserve this time for yourself to go back and reflect. One good way to do this can be going back to look through photos, right? Just to remember and trigger your memory on all the things that happened. And you might come up with your own ritual for the year for really honoring in a little bit more detail what happened. Maybe you kind of write a journal entry or a blog post, or you create a photo album or a post or something like for what happened that year. And I think this is a really healthy practice, even more so than just looking back and saying like, oh, the theme for this year was XYZ, or these were a couple of things that happened. Because really going back in detail does a few things. It helps you to kind of recognize and acknowledge yourself for what you went through this year. When you're looking at the wins and the celebrations, you're recognizing, you're acknowledging, you're kind of confirming that and saying, hey, I see you. Hey, that happened. We're like reinforcing the changes that have happened for us in this way. And this has an effect on our subconscious mind. I believe, and I teach my clients and students, that we are creating our lives constantly from a place of the subconscious mind, right? We think we're creating from the conscious mind, we're actually creating from the subconscious mind. And when we go back to reinforce our wins, when we go back to reflect on our challenges and to remember, wow, oh yeah, I went through that, we reinforce that learning in ourselves to our subconscious mind. I know for myself, it was really powerful to go back and reflect on this past year, because the other thing that this can do is it shows us the arc. It kind of shows us the pattern and the rhythm of the year, right? So it's not just one big arc and then, this and whatever. It's like there's different flows, right? For me, I had several months that were really focused on work. I really amplified my offerings, my expression, growing my community, building out new projects, working with new clients in different ways. And I had some months that were more focused on travel and exploration and kind of fueling my own inner cup and training. I did some trainings this year in hypnotherapy. I finalized my, different trainings in all around the place, and breath work, deepening breath work studies. And there was loss, right? Like, I lost my dog this year. So really kind of going back through the map of the year reminded me what was happening and what was the theme I was working with, and really what has that overall arc brought to me. This can show you a bigger level perspective as you stand here on the other side of that mountain. So imagining your year like this big mountain that you've climbed, and you're on the other side. Wow, you might understand a lot more about where you are now, why you're feeling the way you're feeling. I know for myself, when I went back and reflected on 2025, there was so much more travel and movement and shifting around in so many ways, right? Like community, place, shifting context, shifting environments, and so many things, so many layers shed, right? Like things that started and began and ended in shorter cycles, right? There was just many different projects and work opportunities and things that like started and ended within a period of a few months this year. So it was just this constant shedding due to me kind of choosing to up level and make new choices for myself. So I noticed one theme for me this year was saying yes to things that the old version of me was a yes to and available for, that the new version of me is no longer available for, right? So there was kind of this test happening of, yeah, I'm going to say yes, and then realizing, oh, no, that's actually not where I'm going anymore. And that just happened in shorter iterations. So it was very important for me to go through this reflection process to remember that and to see, oh yeah, I'm confirming who I am becoming in the year to come. So I really recommend doing this month by month review. It also builds a lot of trust and stability in yourself, right? Just to say, okay, it's like this check-in, this accountability. Did I do what I said I was going to do? Check back with your intentions from the year before if you had them, right? If you do this visioning process each year, actually come back and check in. This is going to show you, okay, you're building that stability, that consistency in your subconscious mind as well, that I come back, that I'm going to check in, right? And if you know, did your intentions evolve and change and shift, and can you let that be okay, right? There's learnings in all of it. The other piece to this is that reflecting and integrating, and there's so many different questions and prompts we can use to do this. Again, you can look at my little workbook that I create. It's a little passion project I love to do. I'm a huge journaler and reflector, if you can't tell, creator and creative. And so journaling is my happy place. So yeah, go ahead and look at that book if you like to for some of the prompts, because I'm not going to get so specifically into those. I'll share a few here. But the reflection process, the embodied reflection process, it completes the cycles for us, right? So when I say embodied process, what do I mean by this? I mean, get yourself into an embodied state before you sit down to do the reflections. Do a practice that helps your body feel safe. That might be doing a small meditation. It might be doing a visualization or a breathwork practice and really remembering, what was it that transpired during the year. It might be moving your body, doing some yoga, doing a workout. Like getting in your body before you sit down to reflect actually helps you to create this safety and this stability in your nervous system. So, okay, I can look back and really remember with an open mind and a clear heart and a non-judgmental view of myself and my life. Embodiment as a part of this process helps the nervous system, helps our nervous system to assimilate everything that's happened, to truly digest and metabolize at the somatic level rather than the cognitive level, right? There's such a difference between thinking, oh yeah, okay, like this has happened, versus feeling this cycle is complete, right? For example, if you're someone who has been putting up with and who's been available for relationships that do not value you, right? For example, getting yourself in situations with people who speak down to you or don't value your worth, or jobs that with bosses that treat you poorly, or romantic relationships that, feel toxic but you still feel addicted to, right? Like if you have this pattern in relationships, there's a big difference between seeing it and thinking it and saying, okay, I need to make that change. That's really not healthy for me, versus feeling that in your body in a way that you actually don't attract those situations anymore, that you're living it, right? That you're actually no longer available for those relationships, if that makes sense. You're not actually attracted to that anymore at all. It's not a thing. Like that's the embodiment of the change, right? Versus seeing it like, oh shit, I shouldn't get into this anymore. No. Like it's not a part of your reality anymore, because your filter is through the sense of I'm worthy, I'm up-leveled, I'm a different person, right? The level of identity shift, which is what I'm going to talk about in a minute. So completing the cycles through reflection brings us safety. Our nervous system is always seeking completion, right? When we go through like an emotional release process or a breath work, for example, we're helping our nervous system to complete a cycle around emotional processing that it needs to complete. Every emotion we've ever felt through whatever situations we've been in, whether those be happiness, joy, grief, sadness, anger, frustration, loss, shock, those emotions want to complete, right? Emotions are not bad. They're just energy that wants to move, and when we don't allow them to move, we block them in our system. So completion of energy through a somatic process that might look like crying, shaking, wailing, finding the body trembling and breathing, and like it finds different ways to somatically release. It can also look like talking something out and having embodied insights around a situation, right? This is for emotional processing. Reflection and integration of the year does a similar process for our nervous system. It helps us know, okay, I'm complete in this way, I'm open and I'm clear, and my river is ready to flow, okay? So that is the reflection and the integration process. Few questions you might ask yourself in addition to the ones that I've included in my PDF is, kind of what surprised you about this year? Um, yeah, what surprised you? What happened in each area of your life? Kind of looking back through the wheel of life, what were the significant developments or events that happened in each area of your life? What ways did you develop as a person in your health, in your finances, in your career, in your relationships, in your home, creativity, spirituality, etc.? Another good question to ask yourself is, who were you when things were going well? And who were you being when things were challenging? A final question to ask yourself is, looking back at that monthly breakdown, what belief systems was I carrying this year? Like, where can I see different beliefs showing up? Without judgment, just looking at it. Like, what did I believe this year that gave me what I experienced, right? And what themes were present? What was the arc of the year? All right, deep breath again. That's the reflection and integration process in a tiny nutshell, right? Without getting into too much detail. Again, you can download the exercises in the PDF. So moving into embodied visioning and setting our intentions. The main frame that I want to share here is back to why resolutions often don't work, is because they're so often rooted in new behaviors rather than a new identity. So we create our lives from the place of who we believe we are rather than what we believe we need to do, if that makes sense. So instead of asking yourself, what am I going to do differently? Ask yourself, who am I becoming? Who is it that I'm becoming right now? And by the way, you can use these questions in this process for any time. It doesn't have to be the new year. This is just a time that we often ask ourselves these questions. If you want to uplevel your life, whatever that means to you, if you want to start embodying a new level of possibility in your relationships, in your career, if you want to start making more money, if you want to start experiencing more love, if you want to live in a place, in a home that feels more nourishing for yourself, you want to have more time for self-care, if you want to be in greater service and creative expression, you have to really think about who it is that you are being and what the beliefs are that you're carrying, right? Because we are operating, as I mentioned, from the level of our subconscious around who we believe we are and how we believe the world is in relation to who we are. So this is the first piece, is we're going to audit our belief systems. The second piece I want to share is, really looking at your intentions and why you hold them, your goals, your visions, etc. Usually when we set goals or visions for ourselves, it's because, and when they're about specific things, like for example, about money or about a house or about a career, about a relationship, whatever, we set the goals that we want because of how we believe they're going to make us feel, right? So we're always moving towards how we want to feel, how we want to feel, how we want to feel. So before you even think about what your intentions are for the next year, really think about, how is it that I want to feel? Maybe how is it that I felt now? How is it that I felt this year? And how is it that I want to be feeling? And you might notice that you already have plenty of opportunities to feel that way, or you already are feeling the way that you want to feel. And there might be a problem of like accepting and receiving the blessings in your life, right? If there is, then you might have some subconscious beliefs that are standing in the way of you actually receiving those good feelings into your body, into your life. But know as well that whatever it is that you're wanting to bring into your life, again, what are the beliefs around that? For example, right, like if we say, okay, well, especially if you've noticed yourself attracting the same patterns every year, right? Like, I'm ready to step into the next level of my career. I'm ready for abundance. I'm ready for my business to take off, or I'm ready to attract my partner. If you're not attracting that thing, if you're not creating that thing, and I really don't want to get too much into like this woo-woo manifestation, I believe we create our lives, right? We're not attracting, we're not like calling it in. We have to take the action. You need to know what you want. We have to be clear on what we want, and we have to be clear on how we can take action. There has to be kind of a roadmap there, right? We're not just going to sit at home waving a wand to manifest these things. But if we say we know what we want and we're not making that happen, there's a subconscious belief in the way, right? So there's questions you can go through to ask yourself. I can put a link to those in the comments as well, or the show notes as well. to understand what those belief systems are, right? So, for example, if we say we want success in our business, but we have not been successful in our business, even when we're taking actions towards it, you might be self sabotaging because there's a belief system that says something bad will happen if I get this thing, right? For example, maybe I'll be successful, but I will alienate myself from my family because they never experienced this level of success that I'm calling in, right? Or we might say we are ready for a romantic partnership, but we're self sabotaging because we have a story, because we saw it in childhood with our parents that partnership means you're suffocated, right? Maybe if you're a woman, you see your mom growing up, like they had no life for themselves. Maybe they were stuck at home, whatever, right? Whatever thing that is that we want, what is the belief that's keeping you from having that? And yeah, recognizing as well that in order to create changes in our lives, our nervous system needs to be on board. We have to create safety. We need to create that openness and that receptivity for whatever change we're inviting in. And this is why it needs to happen gradually and slowly and incrementally, bit by bit, right? So, okay, getting a little bit more specifically into New Year's practices, visioning practices, I always love to, after doing the reflection process, to kind of choose a word or a series of words. And oftentimes I'll do this like after reflecting on the core values that I'm currently holding. New Year is a great time to reflect back on your core values. What are those principles, the guiding compass for your life? And this can often be like 5 or 6 words that really represent the pillars of what is most important to you right now. In terms of choosing a word for the year, a lot of times people kind of pick this, like maybe you've seen with the Danielle Laporte a long time ago. She has the core desired feelings cards. It's like all these fun, pretty little cards that you choose for your core desired feelings. And a lot of these like abundance, expansion, limitless, brave, courageous, like these are all words people often choose to represent their new year. But a reframe that I recently heard and have started playing with in myself is actually choosing a word for the year that's a little bit more like instructional for your nervous system in terms of a pathway for the intentions that you're holding, right? So this is a word that you actually come back to remind yourself how to be in your body in order to get where you're going. So, right, so if your big intention for the year is abundance or expansion or courageousness, maybe your word is like grounded or rooted or stability, right? As a pathway to get to that thing. Just an idea for a reframe, right? Maybe what you desire is community this year. And so what would be an instruction for your body and your nervous system in that? It might be, openness or vulnerability or like whatever that word is that facilitates that thing that you're moving towards, right? So holding on to a word doesn't have to be one. It can be a set of words. It can be a phrase, but this is a nice way to sort of step into a new year intentionally. Again, doing all of this while in an embodied state. So put on music, get your body moving, feel good, energized, get the endorphins flowing. The next little piece I want to share is just, remembering that who we're becoming, right? Like this is the thing you want to focus on, who it is that you're becoming. Create a list, write out, who is this person? What are their qualities? What does their day look like? What does their morning look like? I think it's so important because a lot of the habits that we talk about changing for the new year are often things that, we might want to put into a morning routine. Things like meditation, working out, yoga, positive self-care practices, right? Like eating a healthy breakfast. These are all things that most people might do in the first hour of their day. And it is so true that how we spend our morning is often correlated, if not always correlated, with how we spend our day. And of course, how we spend our day is how we spend our life. So there's this concept called emotional priming, which is kind of the research-backed evidence for how our mornings impact our day. And it's basically that the first even 10 to 15 minutes of your day, it's kind of a primer, it's kind of a printing on your brain of how the rest of your day is going to go. So you're kind of copy pasting the rest of the day, whatever's happening. So if that looks like waking up and checking your phone, getting into emails, getting into reactionary mode versus inner mode versus creation mode versus reflection mode versus stillness, and like opening the space of your day gently rather than with lots of stimulation and distraction, then this is what you're going to experience the rest of the day, right? So choosing who is the person you're becoming this year? What do they tolerate? How do they protect their energy? How do they show up for their day? How do they, um, engage with the world? How do they engage with their work? What boundaries do they set? So really, really focusing on the qualities of this person that you are ready to step into, and how do you take care of your energy? Um, yeah, another piece you can do for this is kind of setting up a paper with, a line down the middle and writing on one side, this is my old operating system, and writing on the other side at the top, this is my new operating system or version of me, 2026 version of me, etc. And under each column, you can kind of go through a few prompts. First of all, is just what are the qualities of this person? And doing so without judgment. When you look back at that old operating system, and again, I use that word operating system. Yeah, it sounds like a computer because essentially this is what our subconscious mind, is for us. It's the operating system through which we function in the world. And until we update that operating system, we're going to have the same experience of life. It's just the way it is. Like you can take yourself from your whatever life you're experiencing and put yourself in a big, fancy, exotic location. And things might change for the first week or even the first month. But after a while, you're going to find yourself dealing with the same issues, coming up against the same blockages, attracting the same relationships, having the same issues with your work, with your finances, whatever it is, or your inner talk or whatever, your mood, your emotions, because you haven't updated your operating system. You haven't updated your or your habit, right? Which also includes your habits, your beliefs, all these things, right? So when you say old operating system, what are the qualities? How did this version of me show up in the world? What qualities did they embody? What were they available for? What would they tolerate in their life? How did they receive? And then asking yourself, if I'm really honest with myself, what does this version of me prioritize? What did they prioritize? Looking back at your past year, non-judgmentally, where can you see your priorities showing up? You might see, so for example, for myself, okay, this is kind of on the spot. What did I see that I prioritized last year? I definitely prioritized learning and growth. I prioritized, travel, as always. And then the next question you can say under that, how did this serve me, right? I might have prioritized new experiences again last year. Again, did that serve me, right? Like maybe that was serving me in different ways 10 years ago or 8 years ago or 1 year ago than it was serving me in the last year, right? What did you prioritize, right? Did you prioritize self-care? Did you prioritize getting out and making new relationships? Did you prioritize your focus on your work and building your business? Or did you prioritize maybe having fun and being a little bit more loose with yourself, right? So, and what else did you prioritize? What was the reality that you lived in? What was their reality like? So these are some prompts you can ask. And same for the new self. How does this version of me show up in the world? What qualities do they embody? What is this new version of me, 2026 version of me, available for? How do they receive? How do they embody themselves? How do they show up? What do they wear? What do they look like? How do they speak? What boundaries do they set? What do they prioritize? And what reality do they live in? Right? So just write these both out on 2 columns and just, put it down. Just see what moves in you as you do that. And then, finally, I'm going to wrap this up pretty soon. Another just small practice I like to do for the visioning is one that I actually took from the founder of Mind Valley, Vishen Lakhiani, from the Code of the Extraordinary Mind. And he kind of talks about these 3 aspects in our lives of experience, of growth, and contribution. And I find this really helpful for myself because I feel these are 3 kind of modes or three pillars in our life that really speak to our deepest human needs, right? Like we want to have experiences, but it's not enough for us just to have experiences. When we're just here having experiences for ourselves, there's usually something missing. We're also here to grow. We're here to grow, and that means go through challenges. That means shed layers, right? If we're going to grow, we're going to have to shed and let go. It might be painful, but we're going to be birthed anew in the meantime. So we're here to experience, we're here to grow, and ultimately we're here to contribute. We're here to give back. We're here to serve. We're here to share our experiences. So this is where the three come together, right? When you've experienced a lot in your life and grown, then you come to that point where you actually want to give it back. Share what you experienced, share what you learned, and then you give back. And this is what we see with people who become teachers and guides, right? Like they're doing that from their lived experience and from their growth. And we see this really in all kind of systems of culture, right? Those who are really, it doesn't mean you have to have reached a certain level in order to then be able to contribute, but generally you've experienced something and you've grown in some ways when you're then able to give back. And so it's important to reflect on these three areas on, how you want to experience, to grow, and to contribute in the year to come. I find this really gives a good frame and primes us mentally and emotionally for how we want to show up in the coming year. So, all right. I hope this was helpful. I hope this recorded all right. My regular podcasting microphone is broken, so apologies if the sound quality here today wasn't the best, but I just wanted to share this. And I'm about to wrap things up, go into some internal reflection mode, share some breath work with my community here in Portland in the next couple of days, and really wishing you all a wonderful new year. May this be the year that you really step into all that you're dreaming of and you're ready for. This is going to be, in Chinese astrology, the year of the fire horse, and the horse is all about expression and passion and expansion. And just really think about that. What is the energy of the horse? It's big, it's powerful, it's utilizing its power. So really, focusing on your potential, your expression, your gifts, freedom. What does freedom look like? What does living bigger look like? And also not doing that at the expense of your self-care. Like it's still perfectly welcome to be inward, to be reflective, and to find a balance in yourself. In fact, that is really how things shift in the best possible way, is integratively, right? So I hope that this could provide some inspiration for you today, if you're also into visioning. And I would love to hear how this lands for you, and if I can support in any way, I'm always here. So sending you all lots of love and wishing you a beautiful wrap to the year and a beautiful one to come.